Okay, today, hear me, and I'm sorry, I want to apologise because there was one or two videos that I put out that had a title and I never got to even say one word because basically the technology fails. So I'm sorry if you log on to those and nothing happens. I'll try again and remake them. Sometimes a good title gets more people in. I got more views to a video with 1 second than what I get into these hourly long things that have something to, so I'm sorry about that. Any rate, today's one is, once again, I don't have anything planned, but I'm going to try to say something. Okay, humans, in a way, we are the architects of our own world that we live in, or our own, you could say, if you wanted to be negative, you could say we could be becoming the architects of our own destruction almost. But that depends on where we go, um, and and how much we allow to just keep going the way it is. But that also, like I say, everything is a choice. So, but what I am trying to say is that the reason I say that is because in this world that we live in now you can take it one or two ways. You can take it higher up, like to where I've said before that this world is ruled by an entity God that controls everything. And by that I mean it's his construction, it's his video game, it's his, dare I say, I'll use the word matrix because that's the word that people would probably associate with now, but it's really a video game. But a matrix is a fancier word. It means that, as most people probably know, but anyone that doesn't, because I didn't know until quite recently, so I'm not making out that I'm smart, believe you me. So I'm saying that anyone that doesn't know, which could have been me only a second ago, basically that means that you are in something that is already designed. You know, it's already there. It's been created by the entity, God, whatever you want to call it, because I'm going to leave that up to you, because it will only be when you discover it or realize it that you can put a tag on it and say what you think about it. It's for you to decide. But anything that creates, most people would probably look at it that way. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, and I'm not saying it's all there is either. I'm just saying what is now, and as far as this earth goes, right? So it is controlled by an entity that has created this whole earth domain. It's a construct. It's not actually real. It's not really the real earth. It appears to be, but it's not actually like real as we would perceive it to be. We perceive it to be real, but it's real the way that our body is real, in the sense that it has a natural organic component to it, which is totally different to the entity that controls everything. That's all technology. We are organic and natural. Our computer is a natural organic computer. It was meant to be perfect, and it should be perfect, but it isn't, because we are in a technological construct which is alien to our natural body, human computer construct. And this is why, one of the reasons why everything is a little bit chaotic and confused. The entity, as I've said before, that controls everything is a duality type entity God. So it's all about love, hate, right, wrong, all about rules, all about following the video game, the construct, the matrix. You have to play in this, you put into it to play in it, and you have to play by the rules, because the rules are this. Basically, the rules are that you're in a physical body, even though we're really spiritual beings, but we've been put in the physical body into this physical construct. it's complicated. I don't get it either fully, but I'm trying to explain it in the only way that I can see it. And I'm hoping that someone gets it. Some people do already get it. They know it better than me even, because I'm very simple, But by that I mean very simple in my way of looking at things. But most people are, I think, so I think that might be good. But it's still a complicated thing, even though I'm trying to put it simply. So look, so we're in the physical. I'm not super intelligent either, so even though I get it, it's hard for me to explain it. Look, we are put into the physical body, into this physical domain, what appears to be a physical domain, but it's a construct. It is a trick for the mind, shall we say, because it's not actually real, but it appears to be real, just as our bodies appear to be real. But we are really spiritual beings, but we've been put into the body and into this physical construct, the earth. But it's not like the earth that we think it is. Now, that is kind of confusing because I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that this is not the original earth that we were supposed to be in as spiritual beings, in our physical body, which was meant to be perfect. And if our physical body connected to our mind is all operating perfectly, we would know all this. We would be aware of it. It wouldn't be to where I would be saying this to you now, and I would be much more aware of it. I would be able to explain it. I wouldn't have to explain it because you would just know it. In fact, not only would you know it, I wouldn't even have to be using technology to be making the video because my thought would just automatically go to every human being on the planet. No internet rubbish that we now use. That is the construct of the God that has created this construct for us, the internet. All technology. We are not technology. We were meant to operate naturally, you could say, with our natural biological computer. Our mind, at full capacity, could do the same as the internet, I think. But because we have been compromised, because we're in this artificial domain, and because we have given over our thinking to the real world, to the technology, to the matrix, to the video game, we are operating at zero capacity, whereas the technology and the world around us, that is at full swing. I'm trying to explain it this way. What I am trying to say is this. Now, let me try and put it simply, even though it's not simple at all. I'll start with my usual things and then maybe I'll go on to where you get it. Look, human beings are spiritual beings put into a physical body. We are in an artificially constructed domain controlled by an entity, God, that is of duality, love, hate, and creates this whole society, this whole world that we see and think is our construct. It is not our construct at all. It is only our construct in the way that, number 2 point, our thoughts create reality. Now, that's the hardest thing to believe because that's another thing that's been pretty much taken over, right? Our thoughts can create a physical reality. Our thoughts, the power of our thoughts can create a physical reality, but it has to be combined with every other human being, not by the technology, but just by our natural thinking. But that is not something that now happens. All these things have gradually changed over time because humans have given their thoughts and they've given everything over to the technology, one, but also you must remember that even before the internet, we were still in this, I guess, I'm not sure how long this has all been or how many times it's actually happened, should we say. But I think originally we might have been in a really perhaps I won't go there. I was just going to say, perhaps I won't go there. Perhaps I'll stick to right now, that we are in now this artificially created Earth, which is more of an illusion, really. And yes, like the Matrix. Have a look at the Matrix movie, because actually that does, as difficult as it is to comprehend, and as it might even seem tragic to some people, well, you know, it might seem tragic, but because we like to think that we do create, and we do create, because our thoughts can create reality, but our thoughts are no longer ours because they are stolen from us. They are used both for us and against us, because the duality God is continually testing. The duality entity that rules is continually testing. It's all right, wrong, love, hate, now this, look, it's a mass confusion and distortion of what should be. And it is almost incomprehensible to understand. Even I find it mind-boggling. But what I'm trying to say is this, right? And I pray that I'm getting it across, but I know I'm not, because it is hard. Because unless you've actually experienced it, and it's thrown right in your face, as it has been with me, and so I'm not smart, it's just that it's been shoved at me because I'm in a different circumstance. But see, in a way, we create, right? Our thought does create reality. We don't think we do. We think we create it with our hands. We think and then we think we do it. But in reality, we actually can. Our thoughts can create reality. But our thoughts are now, because we are not aware of the entity God that rules and that has constructed this construct, this video game that we play in, this matrix, shall we say, or whatever you want to call it. But it simply means that it's already set up and that everything is, they have control over everything. You know, the entity God has control over the whole matrix, the whole video game, just like a video game where the controller, supposing I'm playing the video game, I control the figurines, the characters that are in that video game, even though I know it's artificial, because I'm on, that's right, the God knows it's artificial because he's controlling us. We are the players, we are the video game characters. And, you know, if we're supposed to go down a certain street, we go down a certain street. What happens on that street is what he will put into the video game. You see what I'm saying? So it's all a construct. But the difficult part is that we do have power, but we do not know that we have any way of manipulating the video game, because we do not realize that our thoughts create the reality. But the thoughts are taken over and controlled pretty much because we give our thoughts, these days, we give our thoughts openly to the internet and to the technology. In the past, our thoughts were in our head. But if you're talking about a God entity, it's quite possible that, in fact, you know, possible that they can still read the thoughts and therefore utilize and know how to manipulate the video game to take you a certain direction or to give you certain choices and to see how you will react, shall we say. So it's all about choices and reactions all the time. But if the God entity knows my emotions and my feelings and my thoughts, my weaknesses, my strengths, my everything, the choices then that are presented are going to be very important, because he already has the knocker, because that is like a God, isn't it, where they know, you know how they say that God knows everything, can do everything. Well, it is like that, but it is only in this realm though, I think, but that's another story. And we now, whether you think that that's a choice too, whether you think that the God should have quite so much power or a little less. That's up to you. Some people would say, well, if it's a God, but that's for you to decide too, whether it isn't just if it is the God, if you want to bow down to it, you can. Or you can say, well, look, my human thought creates reality, so that's, like, are you meant to combine with the God with that like we're doing, or are you meant to separately do it and him perhaps be more an observer? Now, look, anyway, I've lost my own train of thought because it's so complicated. But, okay. Perhaps I'm very tempted to put a name on the God, because some people, perhaps more enlightened ones and more that are knowledgeable, have put names. But I'm not going to, but I almost want to, because it makes it easier for you to understand that the God is technological, a technological God, and operates a certain way. Of course, naturally, I don't understand it, because that is not something that I'm aware of. Maybe if humans were at their full capacity, as I say, we would be much more aware of these things and know much more of what it really all is. But we are in this construct which is like a box and has kept us and keeps us from being aware of all this. So we're actually playing that game 100% as though it's real. We're not like, it's a bit like if I'm watching my TV or if I'm actually playing a video game, right? I'm aware that I'm playing a video game. But in reality, I'm playing a video game in a video game. And someone else is playing me. You probably say, yeah, that's right, you're probably laughing, but that's how it is. I'm playing a video game when I'm playing one on my TV or on my computer or whatever you want to call it, or like we used to down at the arcade. But I am in a video game and someone is playing me the same as I'm playing my video game on the computer. Okay, so that's the reality. That's the reality. The entity that controls the video game uses our human thought and our creativity to help keep this construct going and to create in it. But instead of us directly creating what we want with our human thought is given over to the entity, and then he uses it in the video game. So the God reads our thoughts and our feelings, particularly our feelings, manipulates and uses the emotions to create the construct. So that means that if the entity knows that I'm particularly passionate or get upset about a particular thing, or get emotional about specific things, that can then be used in the so-called real world, shall we say, that can be used to direct me in the video game. Very complicated and very hard to comprehend, but it happens all the time. It happens to me every day of my life, but I've just become aware of it. And we should be much more aware. Like I say, because we should actually be creating with our thoughts. But as I've said before, human beings are all connected. They're connected mentally. Not by the internet. They're naturally connected. I'm naturally connected to every human being on the planet. Every human being on the planet. That is not operating at the present time much at all. It's still there, and it still could be operational, but because I choose to, because that has been out of use for so long, and because I'm not aware that it even exists, I go for the technology, the construct of the matrix, the construct of the video game that the God entity has put us into. And even our natural biological computer, our body, is now compromised because of the fact that we are living in the construct, and the construct, the video game, the matrix, is alien to our natural body, which is why we get sick and why our body is not functioning well. And everything we put into it is not necessarily what is beneficial to it either. So it's all this stuff. And I think, and it's much more, which I'm not going to go into. But essentially, we're in a totally alien environment, you could say. This world is not ours at all. And even, and even when we think that it is ours and we go to do something to help it, that is also just part of the video game. That just plays on our emotions and our thoughts, and to where we think we're doing something. But how can we do something when we don't have control over it, when it's not ours? Like, there's no point in, like, it's like, if you're playing in a video game and you don't control it and the master controller controls it, nothing you do in that video game can really amount to very much at all. It will only be minute things, unless you accept that your human thought creates reality. We are all connected naturally, and that everything else is false and not part of us. Now, that's very hard to comprehend, but like I say, if you can just say that you've been put into a video game that is not of your natural construct, it's not yours, you do not belong in it, really. And everything about it is controlled and used to give you choices. But the choices, because it's a duality entity, it's never going to always be, there's just the one road and that will take you to paradise. It's always going to be, there's paradise, but there's also hell. But because the entity knows your every thinking and your every feeling, and these days you're actually giving it to them via the technology openly anyway. In the past, we didn't give it consensually. It was just yes, it had to be a lot more almost, you could say, how should I say, there again, you'd have to go into you'd have to, I don't want to go there because that would take hours. It would mean that you'd have to say, what is the entity, what this, what that, and that becomes too complicated, and it is complicated, and even I do not fully understand it all, because how can you understand something that you can't see, that you yourself can't actually touch? You can be aware of it, and that's only because you're functioning just a tiny bit more than what you were before. Whereas we're supposed to be functioning 100%. Like, in other words, like, if I'm aware of this, that means that I'm maybe at 5% functioning, and you're supposed to be at 100% with the body and the mind and the spirit and all this sort of stuff. You're supposed to be. That's what, like, that's what really enlightened, so-called enlightened, I'm just using words, because the English language, you have to find words to express what you're saying. And even that is hard, because you're dealing with something that is almost beyond the words in a way. It is about, and what I'm trying to say is that none of this should be, because we shouldn't be in this confused state. I shouldn't be here now making this video via technology, trying to make, through language, trying to make a point that we're in this mass delusion and that everything is confusion and chaos around us all, and that we have no control over it at all. And the only way that we can even remotely see it is to at least, well, like I said before, the basic points that I've mentioned. Number one, I'm trying to think of them. Number one, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Number two, we're all connected. Number three, our thought can create physical reality. And then to say that we are in this construct where our thoughts, our minds, our feelings are directed and controlled by the entity God that controls this matrix video game so-called reality. But it's an illusion, because, like I say, we are creating it as well with our thinking and our thoughts. But if they are controlled by the entity God that has created this construct, we are not directly creating. In other words, right now, if I have the power to create something with my thinking, like supposing I'm sitting here now and I say to you, I'm going to create something with my thinking. I'm going to create a stream, a river in front of me or something, right? Now that's really stretching it, isn't it? That's like being a god myself. I can't do it, because number one, I'm at a low spiritual level, because I'm put down by the matrix and I'm not functioning mind, body, spirit. The body's compromised. The mind is taken over by everything that's around me, by the false reality. I'm not thinking kindly or happy thoughts, because I'm in a chaotic war zone world. So I'm right down here at a spiritual level, right? Mind, body, and spirit. My body's compromised because of the reality that we're living in, which, you know, it's sick, it's ill, it's not functioning as the perfect body computer should be. This body is a computer, better than the artificial ones that are created by, the technology that's given to us by the technological God that rules the world, right? But it appears to be very bad because it's compromised by this technological ruined world that we live in. So we look at it in disdain, whereas if it was functioning perfectly, we would be living for huge amounts of time. Our mind, body, and spirit would be in high sync. We would know everything. We would be creating everything with our thinking, and we would be all in harmony, and we'd be all connected naturally. That's how it really works. That's how it was supposed to work. You could almost go back to a Garden of Eden scenario if you want to, because there's much truth in some of that. Not all. There again, because it's all a construct, and the God actually even operates through the religions, and even gives you the duality even in all that, it's hard to see the truth. But anyway, yeah, if I wanted to create the river in front of me, I can't do it, because one, I'm not connected to every other human being on the planet at this present time, because they're all connected by the internet. And that's an artificial construct of the entity that rules, and it is not a true connection. It creates bugger all, to be quite frank, and I'm getting angry, but it doesn't create at all. It only creates with your fingers, and you have what's pumped into you and downloaded into you, and you can only make it that with you. By comparison with your human thinking and the power of your human thought creating, you can create anything. This physical computer that we now use is rubbish by comparison, but it's all we've got now, and people think it's wonderful. They think the opposite. They think it is the do and end all, and it will be too, but it won't be. But that, to me personally, I think it's where humans are going to, and this is what I was going to put at the title, humans, because they can create, they will end up creating their own destruction. They won't be aware of it. They will think that they're creating their own, the opposite, longevity, their own future, and making it better. But in reality, under our control, and we are not directly creating it, which is the case now. We are operating, our human thought is taken over by the matrix and by the technology. Even if you just want to forget how far I'm taking it and say, hey, we are now just living in a technological world, and the technology has taken over our mind and our thinking and controls our thoughts and our reactions and our every move, you could say. Just put it there. Forget if you, I mean, but if you really think that you control the internet, does any one individual really think they can? Forget about your intuition, forget about your spiritual stuff, forget about all the stuff I've said. Just pretend that you're a plain, ordinary, intellectually logical human being that needs your little computer because you can't think without it. Just say to yourself, do you really control that computer? Sure, you press the buttons on it, but where did it really come from? Where does this network? Who controls that? The entity, God, or even if you want to say, even if you want to forget about taking the big picture of something bigger, that there's an entity that controls the whole thing, just say the people, the powerful people who control the world or who control the internet, because you must acknowledge, even if you're going to say, I'm not a spiritual human being, I'm just this pathetical little human being that lives in this real little world, and that, you know, the computer is some little genius's invention that I don't know of, and now it just covers the whole globe magically, and no one controls it. I control it every time. Us humans, we all control it. Like, does that really make sense? Like, you know it doesn't, because you know that you didn't make it, that you don't really have any power. All you do is press the buttons and the information is downloaded. You don't even know where it comes from. You know, you're sure you use it to communicate. So that's the seduction of it all, is that you can communicate, you know, because you don't know that you should have been able to just communicate naturally anyway, and that you had abilities, that your mind is the master computer. Your spiritual mind is the master computer, and your body, your whole being, operating at full capacity, should control the universe. But instead, you're in this video game, limited and controlled by the technology and the confines of the video game. That's just my opinion there, because I'm saying that if the human thought can create reality, and we're all connected, because you're not, that's what I'm saying, I cannot create that river out there with my single thought. But if I could reconnect to every human being on the planet, like I should be able to, I believe, that river is more than possible, you know, for me to have created it right this very second. Now, you would not believe that, but that is what I'm saying. But you can't create that river on your artificial computer, no. You know, so I'm sorry to get a bit angry, but it does make me very frustrated and very angry to realize this and to know that we are crippled, because the God will still give us the choice, the entity, or even if you say it's people that have constructed the internet and control the planet, you know, because we certainly know that we don't, individuals don't. So the higher up you go, you sort of acknowledge that you put people in charge, okay, but you never know what they're really doing. You know that they've given us all this stuff, but look at the world and look at the, you know, but what I'm saying is, so even if you just want to leave it at that level, right, you can do that if you want to. I don't think it's the whole story, but even at that level, if you just want to look at it that way, but how can you prove that you can create a lot when you're disconnected, and we're now disconnected to this artificial technology? That we are able to do these things. But I think that perhaps what you should say is, even with the technology, our thinking, our private or secret thinking and thoughts are no longer our own. We are giving them over, even if we're giving them over just to another human being that is more powerful. In other words, supposing whoever operates the internet, right, the individuals, the human individuals, dare I say, okay, so-called human individuals that operate the technology of the internet. You are giving your thinking and your thoughts, your private thinking and thoughts, over to them. So then they can manipulate and operate in this world, and know what to do to keep you playing in the video game. You know, do you see what I'm trying to say? Because I'm saying that if I think something passionately, and they know my every feelings and my every thoughts, my private thoughts and feelings, to then, well, basically they've got everything, haven't they then? You know, they could pretty much direct you any way you want. Just like if you're in love with someone, if you were in love with someone and they knew your every thinking and your every thoughts and your every feeling, boy, would they have the knocker on you, wouldn't they? And what if that person didn't love you? What if they actually disliked you? Boy, could they then have the knocker on you. They could, yes, then use you for your own destruction. So what I'm trying to say is, human beings, because of the position we are in this construct, and because of the fact that we are not consciously creating our reality without thinking, because we do not think that's possible, and because we're no longer combined. We're not combined. We haven't been combined for a long, long, long time. That's why the world has always been, I think, not at peace ever. There's always that eternal looking for the perfect world, the perfect peace. That's why it's never been, because we have never all been connected and accepting that together, all combined with our natural thinking, our natural connection, we can create any physical reality. We can create anything, not only in this world, but probably beyond. In fact, we could probably, dare I say, we don't have to even play the video game. We can manipulate the video game instead of the video game being there for us, and vice versa, shall we say. Because, like I say, if the video game controller, whether you want to take that to be the people who control this artificial world, or even just the artificial world that you know of, because the internet is an artificial intelligence. It's an artificial or artificial programming. You know, I say intelligence because that's what yous would think, because yous think the computer is smart. I do not think so. I think it's artificial programming, but it gives you information. Whether that information is true, false, or whatever, that's for you to decide. But it's downloaded to you, and you receive it. This is not. It's not how we can control our reality or control this video game. No, that is how we are more into the video game then by using that, because that is part of the video game. That is part of the technological God or the technological people, human people, if you want to say that. I'm not going to go there. You know, they look human, but you know, I mean, some people, all human beings look human, but you know yourself, some people are more human than others. Some people are all a lot, you know, is a psychopath human? You know, most people would say probably not. They look human, but they're so cold. They have no feelings and emotions and no real proper thinking. It's all about destruction and bad and stuff. So you know, and so what I'm trying to say is that just because you know, people look a certain way, look human, doesn't mean that they're all thinking like you might think or like I might think. You know, don't presume that. You know, and I'm sure you realise that. And if you look at even, I don't know, this is just me, but if I look at the way the world is run, and whoever controls it, I'm not talking about the God entity, because he does give choice, but we just will go along with what the construct is most of the time. So even if it goes against our spiritual nature, in other words, it's a bit like this, right? The entity God will give you the choice. Look, go to war to create peace or not. And you say, oh, right, I better go and fight and kill someone to create peace. That's just the classic example of it, you know, which I think I've mentioned before, and I think others have said. In other words, you've automatically went against your spiritual being, because you're a spiritual being in a physical body. You've automatically went against that just by the nature of the fact that say, I will kill, you know, doesn't matter what the reason. That's the trick. That's the choice. That's the construct. That's the video game saying, here you are, little me. You make your choice. You go and kill to create peace or to create a better world. That's the trick. Make your choice. I know what choice you're going to make. You're going to go to kill, to fight, to create your perfect world, because that's how it's set up. But you still have a choice. But more than most people, down through the history, as you can see, humans have made the choice to do that, particularly if there's a leader or someone that says they should. They follow the leader. You know, all these sayings are not here for nothing. That's part of the God entity, gives you the choice. He gives you all these, what we now call sayings that seem to make no sense. I could mention 1,000 of them. They've come to me recently. I'm like, yeah, that saying's been around for 1,000 years. And only now people half mock it and they half say, oh, yeah, there's truth in it. But at the same time, they say, oh, yeah, but it's not really reality. So it's kind of like, it sounds good, but it doesn't fit the reality. But in reality, a lot of these sayings are put there because they are the truth. They're telling you what you really should do. But instead we get confused by the matrix, by the video game, and so we go along with what's happening at a given time. We don't go to our higher spiritual thing and say, hey, if I'm a spiritual being, if I kill another human being and I'm a spiritual being and we're all connected, I'm killing a part of myself. We're all connected. You see? So I can't justify it and say, hey, that person's on the other side of the world, they're doing bad stuff, so I get rid of it. I can't do that. But if I get tricked by the Matrix or by the video game, I will do it. Now, what I'm saying is that doesn't mean that that person on the other side of the world isn't doing wrong, because you see, they're a spiritual being that's in a physical body, but they're tricked by the Matrix in the video game too, like us all. So whatever they're doing, they're reacting to the video game, the Matrix, to what's around them. So they're not in contact with their spiritual self either. But you can't blame them for that, because they've entered into this real world and they believe it to be true. They do not believe they are spiritual beings in a physical body. They do not believe they are all connected. They do not believe that their very thinking, combined with every other human being, can create the peace and the perfect world that they really all want. You see. And instead, now, we've entered more into the video game, because the video game, the God, or even the humans, if you want to keep it simple, that direct this video game and control it, because they know our thoughts, and they are now controlling and, well, not so much, yeah, they are controlling. That, look, if you give your thoughts and your thinking and your feelings over to another person or another entity, or over to the world, the form world, they can then use your thoughts, feelings, and thinking to direct you any way they want. Because if you do not think, like I say, if you are playing in that game, you're leaving yourself open. And so the God entity, or the humans even that control this video game, this Matrix, they can then direct and control the whole of society. Even society is a construct, a total construct of the video game. How we see it. There really shouldn't be probably a society, because if we were all functioning as we're meant to be, all combined, all creating reality, all connected, there would be no need of all the society and all the rules. That is all the construct of the Matrix, because the Matrix is disharmony, chaos, and duality, love, hate, right, wrong, rules, regulations, confusion, chaos. Got to go, run out of time. But I hope you got something. I don't think I've done it very well. I'll have to just keep trying until I get it to where it's coherent, to where it fits, because if it all fits, the pieces all fit, then at least you'll get it. I can sort of see it in my own mind, but I'm having trouble communicating words and getting it coherent. And also, you do have to believe the basic things, or at least think they're possible, and that's hard too, because I didn't believe it only a second ago myself, you could say. So, but anyway, because that's all we've got, really, I think. Good night.